Hey guys, today I'm going to go over making a very simple door hanger slash monogram in Carveco. These have become really popular in my area. I've made hundreds of these last year, so they're really simple, really easy to do. This is going to take about 10 minutes to design and another 10 to 15 minutes to cut on the machine. So let's just do this real quick. I'm going to go over these will be even quicker once you get your basic shape set up. It's just a matter of putting in the name and the lettering. I'm going to do this right from the scratch just to give you an idea how easy this could be. So I'm going to make this 23 inches. I'm going to do a circle. I'm going to go up here 23 inches. There's my vector. I'm going to put this in the center of my model. Another point to start off right now. When I cut this, I am going to cut this my starting point is going to be in the center of my model. So I'm going to do that right now. Set my position, center pixel. That way when we start, you can see here, this is where it's going to start cutting. I've done it before where I'll keep it bottom left because that's what I'm used to. But when I do circles, something like this, I like to start in the center because the center is always easy to find on a circle. Okay, so here is the outside edge of our door hanger. I am going to offset this to the inside 1.5 inches inwards. Keep my original. Boom, there's my border. Now on these, I like to put a small notch in the top for hanging. It's going to be pretty easy for us to do. I'm just going to pick my square. I'm going to pick a width. I'm going to go 1.5 by, zoom in here, by 0.75 inches. I'm going to do a radius on my corners, 1/4 inch. Good enough. Create. Now, this should be in the center of the model. Just double check. Local model, oops, vector, align, center of the model. Man, there we go, easy. Now, just to make sure that it's in the center of my circle, I'm just gonna use my arrow key and go up. Zoom in. Go down a little bit. So now this little notch should be in the center of my circle at the top. Now I select these two. I'm going to use my scissor, and when I use this vector trim tool, I always click the auto join. If you don't click the auto join, you're going to have to go back and join your vectors manually. It can be time consuming and sometimes it doesn't always work the way you want it to. So it's easier if you just start off with that auto join. Boom, done. So that should be one line now. Perfect. So this customer just wants a simple letter and her name in it. So that's what we're gonna do. She's already picked a font. Wait for my computer here. So the font she wants is right here. Zoom in. So I'm gonna do a capital W. Go down here, create it. And I'll bring this into my center. I will hit T for transform. And now I can stretch this W to fit. Grab by the corner, I just scale it up properly. Now I'm going to distort this letter slightly. In the long run, it's not going to matter. You're going to have to distort the letters most likely to fit the circle. If this was an I or an A, like the dimensions of each letter in order for them to hit the sides of the circle are going to change. So just keep that in mind. Some letters might not look as good as other letters. So here we are. I want to make sure that I am touching all my edges. That's good. So let's go ahead and trim this down. Oh, I'm gonna have to ungroup this. There we go. So when you ungroup a font, this is just a helpful tip that I've learned. if we go back here, so this right now, even though it's one letter, it is grouped. You can't do much with it. So right now, it excuse me, it's still a font. As soon as you ungroup this, it is no longer a font, it's now a vector. So you can't expect to come back in here if this was a bunch of words. Let's try this again. If this was some text, right now it is one group of text. You can go on here and edit it. I can back it up. I can change the text. But if you want to do anything with this text, say you wanted to make the high bigger, you have to ungroup it. So as soon as you ungroup this, it is now individual vectors. It is not text. So keep that in mind. One thing I also like to do when I'm working on files, if I have a feeling I might come back or I might make changes, I'll actually take some of this text, put it off to the side, out of the way, and not touch it. That way, when I come back to it at a later point, I have a reference of what font that was, because as soon as you outline this and make it vectors, you don't know what font it is. So if you're like me and you've got 2,000 fonts in your computer, it could be a nightmare trying to find a font that you used once for a customer. Okay, so let's delete that. Let's go back here. So now we have our text outlined. I'll go to my trim tool and I will get rid of what I don't want. I want these edges of the W to hit the outside of the circle. That way it holds the W in place. Boom, there we are. So there's the W. So now I'm going to put a bar in the middle for the name. So I'll create that. Width will be 23 and a half. 23 is fine. Height is going to be 1/2 inch. Create. Now I'm just going to do this over here. I want my text to be about 3.5 inches. So I'm just going to make a box for reference. You could do this with guides. You could do it a bunch of different ways. Just put this here. Now I will use this box. That box is 3.5 inches tall. I'm going to use that as a reference just for spacing. It doesn't have to be exact. You could just eyeball it. I'm just going to copy and paste this and move it down with my arrow key. And there we go. That is 3.5 inches roughly. So I'm going to group these just for now, so I don't move them individually. And I will put this where I want it in my W. The nice thing about doing it this way, you might not necessarily want that in the center, depending on your letter. It could take away some features of the letter that might be important. So you've got a little bit of wiggle room to move this up and down, but in this case, it looks fine right where it is. So there we go. So this is where our name is going to go. So I need to get rid of the middle of the W. I need to join my ends. So again, you can start selecting and using the merge tool. There's different ways to do this. I prefer to use the trim tool. It's just easier. You get the result that you're looking for. It might take a little bit longer in some instances. Some of the monograms that I do, I will type the name in, the space I have available, and I will use that merge tool. It's a lot faster than going through and deleting each one. But for something like this, I just find this easier. So let's go through and know that these are gonna leave. Gone. And it can be time consuming, but again, you get the result that you're looking for the first time. Sometimes when you apply text, for whatever reason, the different fonts can cause their own issues. That might happen this time, it might not. If it does, we'll deal with it, and I'll show you how I deal with it. For whatever reason, some fonts are just created poorly and cause problems. Okay, so there we go. That's it. So now it's time to add the name. Just want to stop right here for a second and mention a couple things. Once you get that monogram designed without the text in it, it's a great idea to save that as a separate file altogether. That way you're going to start to create a database of these blank shapes that you can later go back and use. So if you get a customer down the road that has another last name that starts with a W, you've already got that shape created. You don't have to go back and create it again. Another great idea is just the circle. Once you get that circle created without the W in it, just save that circle. That way you don't have to go back and create it again. And your shapes, your circle, the border, the notch, they're going to be consistent as you go along. And the last thing is, I just want to apologize for the background noise. I noticed that my 3-year-old must be destroying the house upstairs while I was recording this. Go in here. My font tool takes so long. And I will do all capitals. W-Y-L-E-S is the name. Create. And now I will adjust this to fit my area. Yeah, it's good enough for me. Some fonts I will go in and edit the spacing. I'm not really crazy about the W and the Y, but it's what happens when you type in all capitals. So if I wanted to, I can ungroup this text, select these, and just kind of move this over a little bit. Same with the E. Does it matter? No. Would anyone notice? No, but maybe it's just me. So now I will take my trim tool again. I will go in and delete. See, there we go. So sometimes, see, it deleted part of the letter I don't want it to. Sometimes if you just reverse the order that you delete your vectors in, it'll work. And there we are. It's pretty painless. So that is, oh wait, forgot one. That is our finished monogram here. So what I normally do in this case is I always proof my customers. So what we will do is I will set up my material. I'm cutting it out of 3/8 Baltic birch. And I will run a simulation. So let's put my toolpath in. I've got preset tools that I use. I'm using a 1/8 compression bit. And there we go. So I always run a simulation just to check my tools, just make sure everything looks good. It's helpful. I find every time that I don't run a simulation, I miss something. Okay. And what I do is I'll actually take a screen grab of this, send it to my customer. Oops. That way they can see what it looks like, and I can make sure I didn't spell their name wrong. So it's always helpful to have. So I will save this toolpath and we'll go cut it out. So I just want to go over quickly the bit that I'm going to use for this. This is a compression bit, 1/8" compression bit for this plywood. So if anyone that doesn't know what a compression bit is, it basically has an upcut portion and a downcut portion. So the idea is when this is cutting through the plywood, that when you get all the way through the plywood, the upcut portion is going to leave a nice finished edge on the bottom, while the downcut is giving you a nice finished edge on the top. So here's our plywood. Now, if you remember in our file, we set up for center. Pretty easy. 23-inch circle. My plywood right now is 25 inches. I'm going to use a pencil. Okay, so half 25, 1.5 inches, there, and I just want to make sure that I've got room, so our circle is 23. I'm going to come down here so I don't waste a lot of wood. So right there, there is the center. Right there. Let's take a look. There we are. Take that over to the table. Sand off my pencil marks. A little bit of sanding around the edges, but really with the compression bit, nice clean edge. I normally just sand it top and bottom, get rid of any fuzzies that are there, but that's it.